Lisa Whelchel. Welcome to the Morning X. Hey, Lisa.
Hi there.
How long's it been since you've heard that song?
Oh, a couple of days.
Probably not long enough.
Actually, you know what? Last night, on Nick at Night, I couldn't sleep, got up, and it was on, so.
And will you watch the episode?
Yeah, I did.
And are you critical of it?
No, not really. I enjoy watching it.
It must bring back a lot of memories, though.
It does. But they're good memories, so that's probably why I don't mind watching it.
You don't look an ounce different than you did then.
Well, thank you.
That's a compliment.
I appreciate that.
Of the girls on the show, maybe you can sort out for us, like, what kind of male, for instance, like, who got the most mail from male suitors? Was it you or was it Nancy McKeon?
I don't know. I don't know because, they, if it came to the studio just took care of it.
Oh, you never saw it?
No.
Really?
Mm-mm.
They wouldn't pass along, like, what if it was like a letter from somebody that really had something interesting or poignant that they wanted to pass along to you, or...
I don't know. We got our own mail if it happened to come to us, and like my grandmother handled my fan club, and so she got everything and she answered everything personally. But if it came to the studio, they just sent them a picture, and that's it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when you got the role of Blair on The Facts of Life, what were you doing before that? Did you come in and have to audition for this? Were you already acting?
I did have to audition, but I had just finished doing the new Mickey Mouse Club. It was the group in the 70s, the Mouseketeers in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
I remember that now.
Yeah.
I remember that. Well, your life is very different now, and you made a conscious decision after The Facts of Life to, or maybe not so much after The Facts of Life, but at some point when you got married, you made a conscious decision that if you were going to have a family, that being in Hollywood was not an appropriate environment for them.
I can't see
Is that
why
right?
you would think that.
I mean, that's a pretty good assessment.
You know what? I wish it was as noble as it sounds. The truth is, we finished The Facts of Life in March of '88. I was married in July of '88. Then I was pregnant with my first child 10 months later, and then I had 3 children 3 years in a row. So I couldn't have gotten a job if I wanted to. I was always in the OBGYN office.
Yeah, you were always pregnant.
How did you meet your husband? He's a pastor, right?
Yes, we met at church.
You met at church. Was this during Facts of Life or after? Or?
It was at the very last, just the last 6 months, actually, of the time we taped the show.
Had you always gone to church, or did you pick it up later?
Yeah, ever since I was 10.
I was impressed to read that you actually nixed a few storylines, or at least a couple of storylines that they wanted to do with your character.
Yeah, early on, they kind of figured that they should have Blair lose her virginity. They just said that was just a normal fact of life, and you couldn't have a girls' show without dealing with that. And I didn't happen to agree with that. I didn't think it had to be. Maybe that's the way things were going, but I certainly didn't want to be a part of perpetuating that lie that was something that just had to happen as a teenage girl.
And how hard
I was
it?
glad because I always had a crush on Blair, so I didn't want that happening on my show.
You didn't want anybody else to soil her. Was it hard for you to fight that? I mean, a lot of times they'll say, hey, look, you just act, honey, we'll write the stories.
You know what? They were very, very gracious about it. No, I didn't have a hard time at all. They, I think they were taken aback, but no, they were very gracious.
Now, do your kids sit and watch, Nick at Night, sit and watch Facts of Life and watch Mom?
They love to. It's actually on a little late for them for their bedtime, but lately I had to get some videotapes out of the show to send to somebody, and then they sent them back to me, and the kids got into those, and they're loving watching those.
Oh, they must love it, because Mom looks pretty much the same, and they're probably just cracking up.
Yeah, and also, I've actually homeschooled them all their life, and this year was the first year they had gone to a traditional school, and it was also the same year that Nick at Night started airing the shows, and so the first week of school was really hard for them, but by the second week, everybody figured out who their mom was, and my daughter actually came home one day and said, Mom, thank you for making me so popular. It's been a good thing for them.
You left this business to raise your kids. How did you get in? What attracted you to the business?
I was really shy when I was a little girl, and so my mom signed me up for an acting class thinking it might help me overcome my shyness.
And I guess that worked.
It did. It worked.
When you were, back doing that show, and I mean, listen, there were few shows bigger than Facts of Life at the time. Did you date like other young Hollywood stars? Did you go out with like the Scott Bayos of the world, or?
Actually, I did go out with Scott. We played racquetball a couple of times, but I didn't really date that much.
From what I understand, there were not a lot of actresses in Hollywood that didn't go out with Scott.
I know, he was linked to everybody.
Am I right?
Everybody.
Scott dated his share of actresses.
Yeah, that's true.
What is he doing now?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean,
He had a band, didn't he?
I don't know, does he?
No, I thought I
not
heard
Scott.
that he had a
Yeah.
band.
But he just, he just fell off. And,
I don't know. Hopefully he's invested well.
Well, I'll tell you, we had Corey Feldman on earlier, and, that same kind of genre, the same age group, and you must have seen a lot of your...
Well, actually, I knew Corey when he was about 3 years old because his sister, Mindy, was one of the Mouseketeers on the Mickey Mouse Club.
No kidding.
Yeah.
We're talking to Lisa Whelchel, formerly from Facts of Life. Now, Lisa, our own Jimmy Barron was on an episode of Facts of Life.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you remember him or not.
Can you remember individual episodes?
Vaguely.
All right.
Should we play her the
I'm
episode?
sure she'll remember this one.
The episode was, remember that girl Heather McAdam, I think was her name. She was like a princess.
Yes, I remember her.
Remember her? And
Sure.
she came to the school.
Uh-huh.
And there was an episode where a male friend of hers from
Came through the window.
That was
That's
me.
him.
No.
He's the window guy.
You're kidding.
No. Every time that airs, the phone will ring at 6 o'clock in the morning. Were you on Facts of Life?
That's funny.
Isn't that wild?
Well, you're pretty handsome.
Woo! Thank you
Well,
very
now.
much, Lisa Welch.
Well, he was, but no.
I was, yeah.
I thought you said you got kicked out of Groton. I would have if I had stuck around. Yeah, well, you're gonna get kicked out of here if Mrs. Garrett finds him in the room.
I guess I better leave.
Don't guess, just leave.
Okay. How do I get out of here?
The same way you got in. How did you get in?
Well, I climbed up the ivy,
Then
but
that's how you're going out. Come on, it'll hold you.
maybe not.
You get the acting bug now and then? Do you want to do something else in the future?
I think I really would because it was such a great experience. But except for the fact that I have these 3 wonderful children, and I would hate to leave them. Even now that they're in school for the first time this year, I miss them. So I think it'd be hard to go back to work.
Now, you homeschool your kids.
I have homeschooled them all their life, but not this year.
Not this year,
Although
she
I'll be
said.
bringing them back home next year because we're going to get an RV and go around the country for a year, and so we'll motor homeschool them.
You would think with your attitude towards family and stuff that you would get as far away from L.A. as you can.
I would, except my husband's job is here, and so we can't do that.
I detect an accent. You from Texas?
Yeah, I'm surprised you can detect it through this cold, but yes.
I can totally hear it. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm from Texas as well.
Yeah. How do you know how to homeschool? Like, how do you know
If
how
you're not
to
a teacher,
teach?
yeah. Where do you start?
Well, thankfully, I started when the kids were 4 and a half, and so, it's pretty easy. I got a wonderful curriculum to teach them how to read, and then just some math books, teach them how to add. You can even do that with Cheerios and M&Ms, and so it's really nice when you start when they're young because there's not that much you have to teach them. And then by the time they get around 3rd and 4th grade, and the requirements are a little stiffer, you kind of have enough experience under your belt and the confidence to handle it.
What about because I know that you said that one, and this I totally respect that. You didn't want to send them to public school because you wanted to also be able to instill in them certain religious values and certain values that you thought were important in their curriculum. What about just sending them, though, to like a religious school where they have the social aspect but also learned, the values that you wanted?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great things that they're learning in the traditional school now because, they're learning things like, well, for instance, the first week my son came home and said, "Oh, Mom, my teacher's going so fast. By the time she's at problem 4, I'm still working on problem 1. But thankfully, this girl next to me knows all the answers, so she just shows them to me and I write them down." So, even subtle things like cheating, they're learning what not to do and what to do, and playground politics. So I think there's a lot of great things they can learn in school. But even with a Christian school, so much of what they pick up really is just from peers anyway, whether it be in a Christian school or in a public school or in a private school. So, at least this way, even though they have plenty of socialization because of Little League and all their classes and all that, at least I'm with them a little bit more, that especially in the formative years, I can make sure that they're receiving the information that's true.
We've got this book out, Creative Correction. Is this your first and only book, or are there more?
This is my first book, Creative Correction, but I have more coming.
More coming soon.
Very good.
Lisa Whelchel, do you keep up with the girls from Facts of Life at all, any of them?
I see Nancy McKeon every once in a while.
What is she doing?
Yeah,
what does she do?
She's doing a cop show for Lifetime Channel to be airing in January.
Is she married? Kids? What's her?
No.
No kidding.
Just
after
hanging.
all- Wow. And did they? When was the last time anybody approached you guys about some kind of reunion?
Actually, they're writing one right now. We may film it in the spring.
Excellent.
Probably to air next year.
Wow.
Excellent.
Where
Where will they go this time?
what's the storyline there?
I don't know for sure. I do know that Nancy McKeon doesn't want to do a reunion show because she's spent the last 12 years trying to get people to forget she was the tough girl from the Bronx so she can get other jobs.
Right. Well,
So I believe it revolves around her memorial service.
she dies.
I think so.
Oh, no.
Well,
She was
yeah.
pretty
What a
adamant about
harsh
never
show.
wanting to come back,
Well,
so
I'll
I
tell
guess this seals the deal.
What a harsh show. They actually kill her off the Facts
I
of
think-
Life. What?
Hey,
what-
Jimmy, the Facts of Life.
Those are the Facts of Life.
Why don't we bring the guy from the window back in one of the episodes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
There
good
you go.
idea. Now you're thinking like Hollywood,
Yeah, there you
Leslie.
go.
Well, but, okay, so they want to do some kind of reunion show with you guys. What about, now, Kim Fields, we know she's been acting ever since then. She's had a bunch of series.
Right? I think she's
And-
doing some directing also for some children's shows on Nickelodeon.
And, of course, Charlotte Rae. What about Mindy Cohn? What does she do?
You know, what about Mindy Cohn? I don't even know myself. I ran into her one time in the last few years, and I don't know what she's doing. I think last time I heard she was doing some European traveling.
I remember it was a big story when, was it on Facts of Life, where there was a big issue with her wanting to drop some weight during one of your hiatus periods, and the producers wanted her to keep the weight on because
I
it was
heard
for the
about.
character.
I watched that same story, so I don't know. That's the first time I heard about it.
Did that kind of pressure ever come for any of you? Did they ever say, hey, you need to stay, or maybe the other way, you need to stay
Like,
thin and
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like-
how would they say it to you?
Like, what was
They
an
would,
example?
They would send me to a fat farm.
They would say, you?
They weren't subtle. Yeah.
Oh, they felt
Really?
they had felt you had gained too much weight?
Oh yeah. There were definitely a couple of years in there where I
I don't remember
went through
that.
puberty in front of everybody.
I don't remember that.
And they call
Thank
your
you very much for not remembering.
I just don't,
No.
I always remember,
That's a lot of pressure.
Blair as Blair.
and
Thank you.
They call your parents and say, hey, we need to talk to you for a second about Lisa because
Oh yeah, definitely.
that's got to be tough as a parent. I mean, how would you
To break
think
it in
about
and go,
your
hey, Lisa,
parent?
we have to talk.
I know. I know. It was a real hard time.
Did
I
your-
actually write about it in the book and talk about, give it a few more details about, kind of some of the tactics that they took to get me to lose weight, and then some of the lessons that I learned through it.
Did your parents ever have any big fights with the studios over things they maybe wanted you to do or things they suggested? Or
No, I was 16 when we started, so just within a couple of years, I was 18 and living on my own and handling it myself. So I was very close with my mom and got a lot of advice from her, but mostly I dealt with them.
did you ever lead that Hollywood life of drugs and immorality? And I mean, was there a period that you ever went through that where you look back and say that was not a proud period?
No, mostly because, and a lot of people ask me that kind of a similar question, just wondering why, when so many child stars kind of have gone down that road, what was different? Why didn't I? And I really think I could just trace it back to I mentioned earlier, I've been a Christian since I was 10.
Right.
And so at that point, I really found out what my life was about, and I was in my heart, it was full, and so I didn't have to go looking down a bunch of paths to fill up an empty place, and I think that obviously saved me from a lot of trials, because as a child star, you have all the money and the freedom and the access to try anything you want to, and so thankfully I was no longer looking. Otherwise, I'm sure I could have gone down a lot of the same paths other kids did.
Hello.
Chris, you're on with Lisa Whelchel.
Hey,
Hi.
Lisa Whelchel, it's such a pleasure to be able to talk to you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, listen, when I was, I say when I was a kid, but a few years back, like 10 years ago, maybe 12, 15, you had put out an album, and I lived probably about 4 miles from the nearest record store, and I hopped on my bike and I rode out and I bought this cassette, actually, and I was wondering, did you ever put out any other recordings?
Oh, thank you very much for buying that album.
Sure.
Wasn't that up for a Grammy?
Yes, it was. It was for like inspirational or one of those, pre-show Grammys.
A Grammy's a
Yes.
Grammy.
Yes, that's the only album I did. And, the reason I did was the same reason, that I've written this book. It wasn't because I desired to be a writer, and that wasn't because I desired to be a singer. It was just because I knew my audience at that age, that time were young people, and their medium, was music. And I felt like, I wanted to share with young people that they didn't have to go down some of those other paths that I talked about earlier. And so I put some of my thoughts to music and recorded it, and so that I could, reach out to my audience. And the same thing with this book. It's a discipline book for parents of young children, and I know that the girls that watch my show are now young moms. And so this is a book full of hundreds of creative and practical ways to discipline your children that take you beyond timeouts and spankings. And so I know that's where the audience is, and because I'm naturally creative and I had the time and I had the desperation to come up with these different ideas because my son was diagnosed with ADHD, I wanted to share it, so I wrote a book. So very, very similar reasons, but I never did record another album.
Now, ADHD is attention deficit? Or no, it's
Hyperactivity
ADD.
disorder.
It's what?
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Chris,
Okay.
thank you for your call. One more. Lee.
Good morning, Lisa.
Hi.
I was wondering if your children start to pursue acting one day, how you will encourage them, or if you may persuade them not to.
Well, that's a good question, a tough question, because my oldest daughter just the other night told me, she said, I want to be an actress, and I don't want to just do church shows and homeschool plays. I want to be a real actress.
Really?
So I'm having to deal with that, and also because the reunion show will have a daughter, Blair having a daughter and a son. She's the only one that would be inclined, and I'm really having to think about it because I don't want her to get into the business. I think it's a lose-lose situation. Either she gets really successful and she makes a lot of money, and then where do you go from there, making so much money as a 9-year-old? I mean, how can you go up from there?
Well, you did, and you turned out okay.
That's true. That's true. I was very, very, it was fortunate that I went straight from the show to having, to being married, having kids, and so that was a wonderful transition.
I mean,
Well,
maybe
with you guiding her, I mean,
yeah, you could say, maybe because she has such a strong foundation, she might not be as susceptible to some of the bad influences that are out there. And clearly, it is more crass and it's harsher. It's worse than it was back when you were doing it, right?
Definitely.
Hollywood
and, that's true. I turned out okay, but I think of it very much like going to Vegas. Yes, somebody may hit the jackpot, but the chances are they're not going to.
And
the chances are they're going to come home broke.
And then you have the other side of that coin is, okay, what are the repercussions of me not letting my daughter pursue what she wants to do? Like, how is that going to come back to bite me?
Well,
it's a tough thing.
It's not a given that a child should be allowed to go into a business at 9 years old.
Well,
I can say when she gets to be 18 if she wants to make that choice, but I don't think I'm going to be a bad mom if I don't let her, work professionally in a very harsh business at 9.
the book is out. It's called Creative Correction. Lisa, is it available everywhere?
It is available everywhere, although it's easiest just to get it online, Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com.
And I'll tell you where else you can get it at on the Morning X website. We'll put it on the Morning X reading room or library, whatever we call it, and you can click on it, and it'll hook you right up to Amazon, and you can buy it right off our website.
Lisa, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks, my pleasure.
Lisa Whelchel.
The best of the Morning X on 99X.
Barnes, Leslie, and Jimmy.
The original
99X.